The film opens with a high-octane chase sequence set in the bustling streets of Prague. A black SUV weaves through traffic, pursued by masked men in another vehicle. Inside the SUV is Rebecca Johnston, a cold and calculating mercenary known in the underworld as the Raven. She's been hired for a job: track down a woman named Elena Kovacs, a former intelligence analyst who has gone rogue with sensitive information that could destabilize international governments. Rebecca is efficient, ruthless, and doesn't ask questions. Her reputation precedes her, but this time, something feels off. The client is anonymous, the payment wired from untraceable accounts, and the target's profile is incomplete. Still, she takes the job. What starts as a routine extraction quickly spirals into a deadly game of survival. After tracking Elena to a small safe house on the outskirts of the city, Rebecca corners her during a rain-soaked confrontation. Elena, played with quiet intensity by Sarah Lamb, reveals she isn't a traitor. She was trying to expose a covert operation involving human trafficking disguised under diplomatic immunity. Before Rebecca can decide what to do next, the house is stormed by heavily armed mercenaries. They're not working for the same client. In the chaos, both women are forced to flee together. Rebecca, initially reluctant to protect her target, realizes Elena is telling the truth when one of the attackers identifies her by name, something only someone inside the conspiracy would know. With no other option, Rebecca decides to keep Elena alive long enough to find out who wants her dead, and why. They make their way to an airport, where Elena has arranged passage on a private charter flight to Budapest. Rebecca insists they take a commercial flight instead, believing it's safer in the crowd. Their plan backfires when they board the plane and realize it's filled with people who shouldn't be there. Familiar faces from the attack earlier, now posing as passengers. The tension escalates as the aircraft prepares for takeoff. Rebecca begins scanning the cabin, identifying potential threats. Among them is Marko Zerer, playing a Serbian ex-military operative turned smuggler, who sits across the aisle, watching her with unsettling calm. There's also Sanjeev Kohli as a nervous flight attendant who seems to know more than he lets on, and Katie Sackhoff in a cameo role as a fellow passenger whose skills in combat become evident later in the story. As the plane ascends, the lights flicker, and a voice comes over the intercom. Distorted, mechanical, and chilling. You have 1 hour to hand over the girl, or none of you land. The threat is clear. Elena must die before the plane touches ground. Panic erupts among the passengers. Some try to flee, others freeze in fear. Rebecca springs into action, grabbing Elena and dragging her toward the rear galley. She locks the door behind them, buying a few precious minutes to strategize. Elena tells her the truth. She stole data that implicates several world leaders in a global arms deal tied to a secret paramilitary group known as Project Viper. If the data leaks, those involved will face exposure and prison. But the data is encrypted and stored on a secure device hidden in Budapest. To access it, Elena needs a biometric key herself. That's why they want her dead. Rebecca realizes she's been used. Whoever hired her wanted Elena eliminated without suspicion. Now, she's the only one standing between Elena and certain death. With no help coming, Rebecca formulates a plan. Hold the plane as long as possible, disable the hijackers, and survive the landing. But things go from bad to worse when the cockpit doors are breached and the pilots are taken hostage. The hijackers begin broadcasting messages to air traffic control, demanding clearance for an emergency landing, but not in Hungary. Rebecca moves fast, taking down 2 henchmen in the lavatory with brutal efficiency. She retrieves a concealed weapon from beneath a seat and hands Elena a taser. "Stay close," she says, "and don't miss." The middle section of the film becomes a claustrophobic battle royale inside the narrow aisles of the plane. Rebecca uses every inch of space to her advantage, flipping overhead bins to block shots, using oxygen masks as distractions, and even rerouting the emergency slides to trap enemies. Marko Zerer's character proves to be her most dangerous opponent, a skilled fighter who matches her blow for blow in a brutal hand-to-hand fight near the galleys. Meanwhile, Katie Sackhoff's character reveals herself as a former CIA operative who had been monitoring Elena from afar. She joins forces with Rebecca, giving them a fighting chance against the growing number of hostiles. Together, they manage to regain control of part of the cabin, sealing off sections and turning the tables on the attackers. Back in the cockpit, Sanjeev Kohli's character, the seemingly meek flight attendant, plays a crucial role. He reveals himself as an undercover agent working for Interpol. He helps Rebecca and Elena access the plane's security systems, allowing them to monitor enemy movements and lock down critical areas. As the clock ticks down, the hijackers grow desperate. One of them detonates a small explosive in the cargo hold, causing decompression in the lower deck. Passengers scream as oxygen masks drop, and the plane begins to tilt dangerously. Rebecca grabs Elena and pulls her toward the front, dodging gunfire and debris. In a climactic moment, Rebecca confronts Marco in the cockpit. He reveals he was once part of Project Viper but was betrayed after questioning their methods. He's here not just to kill Elena, he wants revenge. Their fight spills onto the flight deck, with bullets ricocheting off control panels. Rebecca manages to overpower him, slamming his head into a console before locking him in a chokehold until he passes out. With the cockpit secured, Rebecca and Elena work with Kohli to override the hijackers' course changes. They initiate an emergency descent, preparing for a crash landing in a remote Hungarian forest. Passengers brace themselves as the plane hurtles toward the ground. The final act is a breathtaking sequence of survival and sacrifice. As the plane crashes through the trees, fire erupts, metal groans, and screams echo through the wreckage. Rebecca shields Elena from the impact, shielding her body with her own. When the dust settles, survivors emerge from the burning fuselage. Rebecca is badly injured but alive. Elena stumbles out, clutching the encrypted device. The remaining hijackers are either dead or unconscious. Sanjeev Kohli limps out with a broken leg, while Katie Sackhoff walks away with a bloodied lip and a smirk. Emergency services arrive within minutes. Rebecca collapses as medics rush to her side. Elena kneels beside her, whispering, "Thank you." Rebecca smiles faintly. Next time, fly coach. In the aftermath, the world learns of the failed hijacking. News reports speculate wildly about what happened, but the truth remains buried. Elena disappears again, this time with the evidence safely delivered to an investigative journalist. Rebecca recovers in a hospital, her contract nullified, her reputation intact. She receives a message, a simple text, "Your debt is paid." Months later, she returns to Prague, walking through the same alley where the film began. A shadow watches her from above. The cycle continues. Themes and tone. Fight or Flight is a relentless action thriller that blends high-stakes aerial combat with intimate character drama. It explores themes of betrayal, redemption, and the moral ambiguity of doing the right thing in a corrupt world. Rebecca's journey from cold-hearted mercenary to protector is subtle but powerful, driven by her growing respect for Elena and the realization that some fights are worth having. The film's pacing is tight, with each scene escalating the tension. The confined setting of the airplane adds to the suspense, creating a pressure cooker environment where every decision matters. The action sequences are choreographed with precision, emphasizing realism over spectacle, making every punch, kick, and gunshot feel visceral. Performances are strong across the board. Rebecca Johnston delivers a standout performance as the hardened mercenary, balancing physical prowess with emotional depth. Sarah Lamb brings vulnerability and strength to Elena, anchoring the film's emotional core. Supporting actors like Marco Zehrer and Katie Sackhoff elevate the material with charismatic yet menacing presences. Directed with flair by an up-and-coming filmmaker known for gritty realism, Fight or Flight marks a new era in airborne action cinema. It's a film that keeps audiences on the edge of their seats, asking not just who will survive, but who deserves to. Conclusion. Fight or Flight is more than just a high-altitude thriller. It's a story about choices, consequences, and the thin line between loyalty and betrayal. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the idea that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with weapons, but with conscience. From its gripping opening to its explosive finale, the film never lets go. It's a breathless ride through danger, deception, and deliverance, and it leaves viewers wondering long after the credits roll whether Rebecca will ever truly escape the shadows of her past.